This is update for September 9, 2023, day 563 of the war and of the date of date. Also catch up for September 7 and 8. It's going to be heavy on the economical side, and then I'm going to switch to general developments, and then it's going to switch to the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine. So just going to quickly provide update I haven't done in probably almost a week and a half. So the situation in the US banking system remains more or less stable. So as you can see, the borrowing in total number declining, but the rate of decline has slowed to a really minimum amount. So we may see soon inflection point when it actually starts to go up, because the orange line, as you can see, was slowly but steadily growing, but so far it was compensated by the general decline in borrowing here. So the interest rate doesn't say anything in terms of change in situation, remains more or less within the range, as you can see. Similar situation with loss of deposits. It's, as you can see there, it's not moving anywhere. There's no direction here. Now let's switch to the situation macroeconomy wise. I'm going to start a little bit more with Europe. So as you can see, Italy, the services went down into negative, into contraction. In France, things are even worse, in deeper contraction. Of overall for EU, again, also turning into contraction. So probably going to see a negative print for GDP for Q3 in Europe. Also retail sales are negative, so as you can see, and then GDP growth in Q2 is 0. Essentially, it could be technically it could be negative because it's a statistical error at this point. But as you can see, the picture is not pretty at all, especially given retail sales are going down. So, and as I said many times before, it's a result of the war on the conventional energy. Let's switch a little bit to the US. Things here are cooling down as well. So the interesting statistic is the car sales. As you can see, basically they split between sort of passenger, passenger cars, and then truck sales, which is I guess it just a little bit heavier version of the car, let's put it this way. But the point is, as you can see, the both categories show clear decline, right? So that's definitely not a positive sign. Then manufacturing, as you can see, there is no any kind of renaissance in the US in manufacturing. The new orders declined by 1.4%. That's not a positive sign. Then the only sort of bright spot in the US is non-manufacturing PMI. As you can see, it actually edged up. There's also employment improvement there. So this is on the positive, and it's especially important for the US because US is not manufacturing economy, it's a service economy. And so, which is driven by the fact that it's a consumption economy, right? So it doesn't produce much and mostly just consumes. So then you need services, you don't need manufacturing for that, and manufacturing is outsourced to other countries effectively. So as you can see, that's in a way sort of positive impulse in the US. Also, this is also supported by the situation with jobless claims. They actually went down. Initial jobless claims, so the freshly unemployed people basically is also went down. So it looks on the positive job market, even though there were sort of initial cracks that I showed before here with the job openings and everything, but this is definitely not confirmed by actually unemployed people. So that looks so far positive. The job market still holds on in the US in a clear way. Then also a very important number that I mentioned before many times, I would say the most important number is productivity. And as you can see, it actually, and sorry, I didn't change the colors, that I made a mistake here. It actually turned positive for the US to 3.5%, which is really big positive sign, and it's a result of high interest rates. That's what really drives this situation, and that's why US central bank and other central banks started increasing their interest rates, because with declining productivity, the societal collapse is not far away. It's basically around the corner. Now let's switch to Germany. Probably the most troubled economy of Europe, and it's all self-inflicted wounds. But if we look at the new orders manufacturing, down quite significantly, as you can imagine. Industrial production is also down. CPI is basically remains stable, and inflation is stubborn, which totally a picture of stagflation, right? So you have declining production of goods, and the prices are going up because you increase supply of money. So, or even you keep the supply of money the same, but the production goes down faster. So as a result, you have this stagflationary recession, I would say. And Germany is really, as you can see, like the sea of red is a prime candidate to have a depression in a short order, and social unrest. Now let's switch to China. So the experts are continuing their decline, but as we can see, the pace of decline definitely slowed down significantly, which is obviously positive for China. Import is also declining. Import slowed down significantly. The problem for China is that export is falling down faster than import, which is negative. It's basically creating negative trade balance, and probably related to this, as you can see, the FX reserves went down in China. So this is related to the situation that this export-driven model is not working well, and that's why Chinese basically authority, they decided to devalue yuan to make their export more competitive. So I think what Chinese government is ended up doing, because they cannot come up with any good new ideas and so on, the consumption bubble is bursting very clearly in China, and it's not coming back, and it doesn't even look that it's being sort of propped or supported by the Chinese government in a meaningful way, or enough to sustain it. And to be fair, in order to sustain it, it's much larger than the government. It basically can consume the government. So that's probably why they don't even try to do it in a true meaningful way. So then they decided that this resurrect export-oriented model, and the easiest and surest way to do it and quickest way to do it is to devalue currency, and that's just what they effectively doing. Also, very I'd say negative sign for the rest of the world. As you can see, CPI is up in China. Usually China is a source of deflation. It was why there was basically stable prices and very low inflation in the world for the past 20 plus years. And as you can see, that's looks like it's going away. There is increase in inflation in China, because you see there was deflation, and also deflation, the level of deflation is going down in PPI. So this all means that there is new inflationary impulses building up in the world economy, and it will hit the West in a, I would say, short order, and that will create need to increase interest rates among central banks in the West, probably even more. or it will force and push, but depends on obviously local situation. Because some banks, I think Bank of Canada stopped increasing their interest rates. Now let's have a quick look at I guess a little bit Asia, and then nothing new in UK. In South Korea, the CPI, as you can see, is going up. So again, inflationary situation around the world is not great, and the two most important contributing factors is one is war on conventional energy, and then this global decoupling, global separation, and basically the world is splitting into separate, basically, compartments, and that really increases the costs around the world everywhere, because the most optimal, economic relationships are being broken. And sort of non-optimal are being established around the world, which are much more higher in costs. Now let's switch to the sort of more general developments around the world. And the first one, as you can see, this is China. They built in very, very short order this call it concrete bunkers or concrete shelters for their jet fighters, for one of the airfields close to the Yellow Sea. So and this is just recently built. So as you can see, this is another clear sign of preparation for the war. And then there is also obviously economic war going on between China and the US. So China just made its another sort of hit, and probably everybody's seen that Apple products are not allowed for the government officials in China anymore. It's actually the same as in Russia. So Apple products are not allowed for government officials there as well. But China looks like it's going even further. One of the largest Chinese cell phone provider, cell phone service provider, China Mobile, they stopped selling iPhone 15. So I don't know if they stopped selling entire product line and entire Apple product line, but this is probably the most important for Apple. The phones is where the sort of bread and butter for Apple, and that's going to be another big blow. I mean, you probably seen that stock price of Apple went down significantly. I don't remember, it was probably 10% or something. So that's another blow, and another signpost that the war is coming. Basically, their economic relationships are being cut at every step, and when there's no trade, there is war. Usually, that's typically how it goes. Speaking of the war, it looks like there is totally another war is brewing, and could be potentially, let's say, quite dangerous. Let's put it this way. This time it's going to be between, on one side, Azerbaijan and Turkey, and on the other side, its side is going to be Iran and Armenia. So the situation is extremely tense. I'm not saying it's happening, but its probability is very high. There are negotiations right now going on between Azerbaijan and Iran in last hope to stop the war, to prevent it, and we'll see if that's gonna work out. Now let's a little bit switch to Russia. So the situation in economy, with the Russian state finances are actually improving. With the Russian state budget had a surplus in August, and it's probably reflective of the situation with the crude oil, where price is close to 90. Russia is actually able to export most of its crude above $60. It actually way above $60. It's close to the sort of market price. This is obviously resurrects Russian state finances, and obviously will bring fresh blood to the war effort. And this is going back to what I said before, is this the approach by simply prohibiting Russia export doesn't work, because there are countries that will always buy it. For example, Russia started selling crude to Brazil for the first time since 2016. So it's probably diversification away from India to, or Bharat, whatever they call right now, the India, to other consumers that are willing probably to pay with US dollars or euros, which is what Russia needs. But again, going back to this whole misguided approach with respect to blocking, it's again the only way to address the problem with Russian finances is to make conventional energy plentiful and available, which will drop the prices. This is how it's being done in the 80s with the Soviet Union, and which speeded up collapse of the Soviet Union. And this, all other strategies are going to be actually sort of self-defeating, and actually will, call it this way, feed the beast. And actually make it stronger. But it looks like there is no desire to change. So, however, inside of Russian economies, there's still shortages of diesel fuel and gasoline, as I said before, because Russian government and obviously Russian businesses, they were exporting everything they can to get so much hated US dollars and euros. And so what happened is now that quotas were established to ensure that internal consumers also have some supply, and specifically more focused on agriculture, to make sure that there is, that Russian agriculture producers can grow the crops, can plant the crops, and obviously then next year that will bring quite a bit of revenue for the Russian government. That's it for just general information. Now let's switch to the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine. Gonna start in a clockwise fashion, starting from very north. So the situation along the state border remains more or less the same, all sort of adversarial actions, but no sign of any kind of like large scale invasions from one side or another. Let's now move to the North Lugansk front line. Things here are more or less quiet, with this relatively low scale tactical attacks here in the middle of the front line. But beyond that, there's really not much going on here. Now let's switch to the North Donbass front line. Northern sector is essentially quiet. The only fighting is going on in the southern, where Ukrainian forces actually made some advances, and they liberated village Andriyivka. It's where this area is. It's a tiny village. And then they're pressuring Russian forces in Kurdyumivka, and then also Ukrainian forces, I would say, nearly liberated Klishivka, not 100%. There's still pieces of Klishivka that's being controlled by Russian forces in the north of it. And so Russian forces right now counterattacking, trying to recapture lost territories. But beyond this area, it's fairly quiet. And again, this is all tactical attacks. This is nothing truly like offensive, large scale. This is still low scale action and has no strategic consequences as of now at all. Now let's switch to the central Donbass front line. Since here is broken record, Russian attacks around Marinka, Russian attacks around this Avdiivka. I would say the attacks are definitely smaller in scale and sort of weaker overall, but they still happen. It's just as I just want to mention because it's still there. Let's put it this way. Now let's move to the Zaporizhya front line. Things here are somewhat similar. I'm going to start from the more sort of eastern section of it. So Ukrainian command decided to shift area of attack from this Staromlinivka area to actually south of Zolota Niva. There are two villages there, Novodonetske and Novomayorske. The attack against Novodonetsk failed. Against Novomayorske, there was small, tiny success. Ukrainian forces managed to gain some control, gain control of some buildings on the outskirts of the village. So basically, they sort of holding to the village with one hand, and so far that's just where it stands. It's again, this is quite ahead of the main Russian defensive line, which is kind of like going here where I'm showing. So this is what I call like fodder field. So this is the Ukrainian forces still even trying to just liberate areas that are not even basically like a buffer zone in a simple way. That's how I would describe it in the best way. And then let's move to the more sort of western part of it. The attacks are continuing out of Robotyne and towards Verbove and Novoprokopivka. So far, no sort of positive news for Ukrainian side. Russian forces are holding on, and I'm sure the attacks will continue. Again, these are super costly attacks with essentially no light at the end of the tunnel, because the way it's done, it's just self-defeating, because the amount of resources expended is not comparable to the resources that being destroyed on the Russian side. And so net result is sort of slow destruction of Ukrainian forces' potential. And that's obviously the biggest problem. As I said, people are the most important part in all of this, and unfortunately, Ukrainian command does not understand that. And not to say that Russian is any better. Russian is the same or even worse, I would say, comparatively. But it's just, unfortunately, as I said, it's two Soviet armies, and actually degraded Soviet armies to the level of peasant armies, basically. Now let's move to the last section of the front line around Dnipro River. So here, Ukraine command is not trying so far to exploit the bridgeheads that it established. So things are more or less quiet for now. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye-bye.